are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, good afternoon. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Let me tell you about big stressors in my life. I stopped over at the Your Place across the street. I say, give me some bowlies. I'll bring them over for the boys. I'll have one for me. Oh, my goodness. They're on, like, third world country time over there, you know. Siestas are going on or something. I don't know. But I'm like, could you go back and check and see if it's done? Oh, yeah, I'll do that now. Okay, anyhow. Good food. I'm not sure about the service, but if you have a funny Your Place story, might as well share it here on the show. 540-0580, but I do love their bowlies, and I'm going to eat some of that during the break, which is the other problem. I didn't get to eat any of it yet. I'm watching Shane eat it through the glass. How fair is that? All right, 540-0580. By calling, you can actually stop Shane from eating it, make him answer the phone so I don't have to watch. So think about that. I want to remind you there's a big barbecue coming up August 31st at Harrisburg Beer and Cigar. That's going to be at 2 p.m., and they're over off of Union Deposit near the Lowe's. So give them a check out in the meantime and sign up for the barbecue while you're there. It's August 31st at 2 p.m. at Harrisburg Beer and Cigar. And what else I want to talk to you about? Well, we're going to talk about Snowden today. He leaked some more information, or not really leaked some more information, apparently giving it out. You know, the press is loving this. They're dribbling it a little bit at a time. But we just learned that the NSA makes, a few thousand constitutional errors a year. And a congressman just came out and said they would have defunded the program had that information been made public. Apparently, the NSA has been lying to Congress again, and the president has been misrepresenting things again. And in another about 10 or 15 minutes, we're going to do a little analysis on that because I think there's something here hidden in the coverage. In fact, there is something hidden in the coverage that makes it much, much worse than that, and we'll talk about it. Matt, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. The talk line number is 540-0580, or if your name is Jay, the number is 540-0580. What's going on, Matt?
Hey, how's it going today, Carl?
Good.
Hey, basically, quick questions, probably relatively easy for you. It's the first house that we've ever bought. Okay, we just got this house, real nice place and everything. Is it worthwhile to get a copy of the deed to make sure that the property has been titled like in our name? I mean, because I've heard a lot of people say that, I've heard horror stories and stuff, but it can cost up to like $100 to get a copy of it.
Who did your closing?
North Mountain. It's a place called North Mountain Settlement Service.
They didn't send you a copy of your deed after it was recorded?
No, they didn't send us a copy. No.
At the end of closing, you should eventually get a copy of your recorded deed sent to you.
Okay, for basically the cost of our closing costs, basically. Is that what was paying for that copy, do you think?
Well, let me explain it this way. At closing, you paid closing costs. Mm-hmm. That included recording the deed. Mm-hmm. And usually we send the original deed as stamped back to the person when we do closings, and every other reputable closing company I know. So you should just call them and confirm, but once they get the mortgage recorded and the deed recorded back, you should get those in your hand. Okay,
yeah, because I got a letter in the mail the other day, and it's one of those letters where you're like, because whenever a sale like a house
right.
sale is generated, you know that someone's going to find out, and it looks like it's official, but it's like one of those letters where, hey, send us $80, we'll give you a copy of the deed, and it got me wondering. Well, I wonder if we're supposed to just get that, or do we have to pay for it? You should
just get it. You shouldn't have to pay for it.
Okay, well, I'll get on them about that then, because I don't want to send $80 to someone who I don't know, who has nothing to do with our transaction.
No, that doesn't sound right to me. That sounds like somebody and they're probably going to download it offline and send it to you.
Yeah. All right, well, hey, thanks for answering my question.
All right, boss.
Enjoy the bowlie.
I will. Thank you.
See ya.
540-0580, Carl Rominger here. Let's see. Bernice.
Hi.
How are you?
Well, I'm fine. I'm hoping you can explain something to me.
Okay.
This past week, there was a lot of press about the two child seduction things. The one in Mechanicsburg about the teacher who confessed to the 7 children and only got 6 years. That's like 10 months a kid. and the one in Lancaster about the pharmacist who had so many charges dismissed because of the statute of limitations. And I was wondering why those cases were so much different from the Jerry Sandusky case.
I would like to tell you that they had different lawyers, but the guy in Mechanicsburg was my client. So what I can tell you is this. Every case is different. The facts are different. The district attorneys are different. The counties are different. And sometimes people take guilty pleas in a way designed to mitigate possible sentencing consequences. So I get this sometimes when I'm in court with a client who's on a third offense DUI, let's say, and I've informed him he has to do a mandatory 1 year in jail. And as we sit in the back of the courtroom and they keep sentencing people on DUIs, he keeps jabbing me saying, but he only got 90 days, or that was a third offense for him and he got 180 days. And you're like, yeah, but you didn't really listen. That was a third lifetime second for mandatory. Or there was a compromise in the guilty plea, probably because there was a problem with the BAC, or there was... So all those things factor in. So it's very hard for us, and I say us, I mean you or I, when we read about a case in the newspaper, to know why decisions were made that were made legally, and why compromises or sentences are what they are. But I can give you an example. In the case of my client from Mechanicsburg, the judge was presented with, as he described, dozens and dozens and dozens of letters of support. And so while there was some public outcry, there was nobody in the courtroom besides victims who weren't supporting the defendant. And so there was a large amount of people who came forward to say, this guy really was a good person, changed my life, helped me out, and didn't hurt me. Now, of course, he had the same thing in the Sandusky case as well.
Yeah, but he definitely changed the lives of those poor 7 people.
Well, I'm not saying he did or he didn't.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, though, is that at sentencing, you can't just sentence in a vacuum. In fact, the legislature, your duly elected legislature, who I'm sure you proudly vote for every 2 years, right, has said that the judge must consider certain things in sentencing a person. And one of them is not just the bad that they've done, but the good that they've done. So nobody gets sentenced in a vacuum. So if you and I commit the exact same crime, our sentences in Pennsylvania are not going to be identical, because the legislature has said you've got to consider many, many factors besides the crime itself.
Okay, now let's go to the Lancaster case where so many charges because of the statute of limitations. Is my understanding, now I'm not an advocate for Jerry Sandusky, you know, what happened there, it was terrible, but still, most, if not all, of the victims that he had also would have been affected by the statute of limitations, would they not?
Some were, and there were some questions on some of them, because quite frankly, and I'm not just talking about the Sandusky case, in any of these what we call sex cases, you'll get a victim saying that it happened sometime between when I was 7 and 14, and it was in the summertime. And the defendant's left scratching his head, because if I was accused of a bank robbery at 1:30 in the afternoon on a Saturday, I'd have a pretty good alibi, right? But if somebody said Carl Rominger robbed the bank sometime over a 7-year period in the summertime, I've got to account for my whereabouts for the entire summer and prove that I didn't. So first of all, a lot of times you see some parts are in the statute, some aren't. But I don't think any charges that he were convicted of did the jury have the opportunity to conclude happened squarely outside the statute, or those would have been dismissed.
Well, I'm not sure. I still understand that. It seems
here's a theory of the statute of limitations. I'll give you a great example.
So extreme. I mean, as far as the punishment.
Yeah, no, I know. I'll give you a great example why statute of limitations becomes important. They're longer the more serious the crime, because we balance it out. But here's a great example. If I said you didn't pay me something from 8 years ago, and you're like, yes, I did pay you. I paid you by check, and I'm like, prove it, right? And you go, well, I only keep my records back 7 years because that's all I was trained to retain my records for 7 years because I can't retain them forever. How do you prove you paid me, right? And so statute of limitations is designed to be fair so that you don't have to prove old things out of the blue, or at least answer for things that happened a long time ago when you might not have preserved evidence or thought about them or reserved witnesses, etc.
Okay.
I got to go to break, but thank you. Very thoughtful call.
Bye.
540-0580. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Call in with your legal questions. We'll get them answered here on the air. A little bit, we're going to talk about Snowden. Julia.
Yes.
What's going on?
Well, I have a question that I bet you've never been asked before.
I don't know.
I don't either. Is it legal in Pennsylvania to bury somebody on private property?
Well, I'm aware of private cemeteries.
No,
but I don't know if you can just literally bury dead in the back 40.
Well, that's about what happened. These people buried their son on his lawn, and then his partner left, and the bank foreclosed, and another neighbor bought the property, and he has now found out that these people's son is buried in the front yard.
Well, here, I'm pulling it up here. What states is it legal to bury a human body on your own property? There are no state laws against it, it says.
But now the property has been sold. What is this person's recourse?
Well, I mean, I guess that's a stigma. Maybe the seller's disclosure should have been in there. Does that make sense? That there's a body there? Of course, what does he care? I mean, was the guy getting up at night and disturbing him, or?
I don't think so.
And you could just plant some flowers. I mean, literally, they say pushing up daisies.
Well, there's a tombstone in the front yard.
Well, here's one from real estate. Let's see. In rural areas, often unless you bury someone at home. Pennsylvania, good burial practices in cemeteries. All right. Well, we could look it up, but I'm thinking the general gist is you may be allowed to do it.
Oh my goodness. I thought it was against the law. You know, when you see private cemeteries, they're usually old
right?
Cemeteries, and I thought it was like not allowed to be done anymore.
Yeah, I can't tell. I'm going to have to do a little research on that. You got a good question there. I guess the question is, why would you want to?
I don't know.
But, of course, it's probably better than, like, the ones where we have the little old lady who has her husband in the freezer in the basement under the peas because she just couldn't part herself with him.
Oh, yeah.
Or the guy who I think had his wife sitting in a chair, for years and years and years.
Oh, my goodness. Well, yeah, this is better, but...
yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll find out. I'll get to the bottom of it, and I'll give you the answer here on the show.
Okay, thank you.
All right, take care.
Okay, you too.
She's trying to save on a burial plot. She just doesn't want to say that, Sets up the whole question like it has something to do with something else. Everybody hides their true motivation to call this show. I have a friend, and my friend's dog's master was in a DUI, and the dog's owner's DUI. Like, what's going to happen to me? Wait, me or that guy with the dog? What's going to happen to who? Who are you talking about? I don't know. Who have I got there, Shaney? I don't know. We don't know. Johnny.
Yes, hi.
How are you?
Carl, good. Related to, are you allowed to bury somebody on your property?
We don't know. We're looking it up.
St. Teresa's Church, they buried the Monsignor there several years ago, and that's a church property, but it wasn't necessarily a cemetery, but right at the church, they buried him in the front there.
Well, and I always get confused about this one, right? I mean, you have holy relics, so you actually have sometimes where they have bits and pieces of somebody buried all over the place.
No, this guy was actually buried there with a ceremony and everything.
Yeah, so we know. Maybe you can, and that's why I say I just want to look up and see where it says you can't. I did catch something really quick here, basically that somehow you got to get the body from the hospital or the morgue, back to where you're going to be. That may be a big problem.
Yeah, well, that's what happened with this Monsignor. He was buried there, the big ceremony and everything.
Yeah,
but he was buried in the front of the church.
And of course, the church is a little different because you don't expect the church to be sold anytime soon.
I understand that, and I agree with that.
And I don't know if a disclosure is necessary or not, but I guess theoretically there is case law holding that if a house is haunted, or do you remember they just had this show or this movie out about some house down south where there was some kind of haunting or something. Now people are showing up at the house and the new owners are complaining because they just have people coming by all day, every day to check out the house. And the same thing happened with the Amityville Horror. Yeah. That house apparently had problems too, where people just kept showing up and showing up and showing up, looking for the well to hell or whatever.
Right.
So I know you can have stigmas to houses, and I guess if a person were truly disturbed, I don't really see what the big deal is. So there's a body buried, as long as it's buried deep enough. I do know that, for instance, there's regulations about burying bodies, and these days they have to be in concrete vaults. In the cemetery, at least a lot of times vaulted and all these sorts of things, which are mainly designed just to keep them from working their way up through the soil over the years.
Right.
Which is... Go ahead.
That's been a long time.
Well, every time they have a big flood in the Mississippi, right, that's what you find in your front yard, a casket.
Right. All right.
All right, man. Thanks. 540-0580. Yes, today we're going to go into the... We're gonna go into the aliens next, because Area 51 was in the news this week, I guess. Scott, you want to talk about landlord-tenant?
Carl.
Yeah, what's going on, brother?
Yeah, thanks for answering my emails. I went in there. My wife had called, told the story. It's very simple. I had an oral contract, and they didn't give notice till the 19th of the month, so I kept the security deposit and would have been willing, if I had found a renter, to give it back. So I go into the district magistrate. He didn't even understand what an oral month-to-month meant, because he asked me, did she pay that month's rent? I said, yeah, but she didn't give notice till the 19th, and he said, it doesn't matter. She can leave whenever she wants to. And he said I couldn't use the security deposit to pay for the rent. And I was just stunned. Now, my question is, am I supposed to explain the law to him? I assumed he knew it.
Aha. Well, let me explain a little dirty little secret of the law, right? The judge says, when you're in court and you're a lawyer, the judge will sometimes say, well, you guys have any, you have any law on that? And the joke is, if you really want to get in trouble, look at the judge and go, what, you don't know the law? And the reason is because, frankly, nobody knows all the law. The lawyers who've researched the case have the duty to bring forward what they know. Now, here's your problem. You're in front of a district magistrate, district judge. They should know the basics of landlord-tenant law. And you and I had a little email exchange, and didn't I send you the Attorney General's own document that says that the judge was wrong, right?
Correct. He had. Did you see the other thing I sent you? The last thing I sent you, showing you what he gave to the judge. I think it's an old law stating that no security deposits can be kept for rent payment. And I think it's just an old obsolete law, but he had it there. I sent it to you, the last thing I sent to you.
I didn't see that one yet. I'll have to look at my email. In the general practice of law, we've always looked at it this way, and this is the answer. This is the way it's done everywhere else I've ever been. You give an itemized list of damages plus any rent unpaid, and you withhold it. As long as you do that within 30 days, then the other side has to sue for their money back, and then you have to come forward and prove the damage and the rent unpaid, okay?
Correct.
And that's usually a pretty simple process. Here's your problem. You were in New York City, right?
Yes.
Now, let's talk about how do judges get elected to the district judge slot? They get elected by the people who live in the area, right? So there's a theory amongst the lawyers that when your judge is elected by the city dwellers, who are mainly renters, okay?
Okay.
Which side of the fence do they usually fall on when there's a landlord-tenant dispute?
Yeah, I get that impression.
So, you don't get the exact same. We used to have a judge in Harrisburg who's retired now, district judge, where when I would represent a tenant, I could just be like, well, they put some tack paper down in one of the cupboards, and he'd knock $50 off the rent. You know what I mean? And then say, oh, and they kept the drain, they kept the hair out of the drain in the bathtub too, Judge. Okay, another $50 off. So, the fix may have been in. Now, here's how the system works. You have the absolute right to appeal it to the Court of Common Pleas. And then the other side has to go forward in common pleas and file formal documentation and really do a lot of work. So we need to look at that last little bit of law. But as you can see, even the Attorney General of Pennsylvania thinks I'm right.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
All right, boss?
I know that they're elected officials. I told my wife, she thought I should have spoke up more and tried to explain this and that and the other thing. And I want to get to listeners to understand what you're saying is that they are usually popular people in the area. They're not most likely usually attorneys. I know one that used to be the chief of police were in my area. So I thought maybe I should have got more information and explained, but I didn't think I had to explain a month-by-month contract.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't have to. That should have been covered in District Judge School 101.
Well, he's been there 10 years. I called back and told him how disappointed I was. What's the next step? And then I have to file an appeal. I said, man, I was just run over by a bus and just totally disappointed. And I thought I'd be in and out of there and I'd go on my way.
Well, that's why sometimes it pays in the front end to get the lawyer, just because even though you think everything's in your favor and it seems like the law's in your favor and the law actually is in your favor. I was just up in a county, I think I mentioned this on the air before, where the judge said, well, that might be the law, but I'm still going to convict your client. And the client said to me, did the judge just say that was the law, but he was going to convict me? I'm like, he basically acknowledged that, yes, my case law was correct, but he was going to ignore it.
Well, that scared me about on appeal. He even mentioned that he could go 3 times the security
Which
deposit.
you can't, he can go twice.
Twice. Yeah, so he was wrong on that.
Right, so you should feel confident to appeal, my friend. You should. All right, I'll take a look at that law and I'll email you back. You take care, all right?
I have one more question.
Well, you got to hold then.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
When we get back, we'll talk with Scott some more, and then Bill, the funeral director. I want to get you on the air. Okay, you can get the document online. I'll put the link on my Facebook page so you can see it. But we're going to talk about the Snowden revelations here in a minute. I want to finish up with Scott quick and then with Bill. Scott.
Okay, so I appeal it. Does the new judge know the decision of the magistrate?
Well, of course they would, but the new judge, it's called de novo. And what happened below is legally irrelevant.
Okay, and if I lose in there, do I have to pay all expenses for the other side?
I don't think you have to pay any legal fees, no.
Okay, well, when I went in there and I lost, I had to pay for her to file.
Yeah, you paid the filing fees. It costs, it's like $80.
Okay, if I win, they have to pay the filing fees?
No. Well, actually, you could potentially get costs if you prevail on the appeal, yes.
Carl, this is so discouraging that so many people probably walk away from this.
Yep. Well,
saying,
hey, here's the deal, though. You want to be a landlord, welcome to the legal system.
Well, look, I've been a landlord for 35 years, and I've always had oral contracts, had no problem. And then I get this, and I thought it was a very simple, easy case to decide, and I get this.
Yeah, listen, we can go on and on. I'm going to explain this to you real simple. Every poor sucker out there who walks into a courthouse thinking that he or she can handle it on their own, right, forgets one important fact, that the court system is designed in an advocacy scenario, and it's designed, particularly at the minor judiciary, with judges who sometimes make practical applications of law which might not be technically correct, who might be corrected by a lawyer, okay?
Okay, so if I took a lawyer in there, she'd have been ready for this.
If you'd have taken a lawyer in there, the lawyer could have said, well, Judge, I don't think that's right, and let me look at the landlord-tenant law and let me explain it to you.
Okay.
Now, sometimes as a judge, like I told you before, the judge just looks me in the eye and says, Mr. Rominger, that's great. I believe you. I read your case, and I have to acquit the guy, but I'm not going to do it. Okay, well, thanks, Judge. Justice has been served. I guess we'll file the appeal.
Okay, can I appeal the next court case?
You just appeal it, my friend. Once you appeal it, she has to start from scratch. She has to file pleadings.
If I get a judge that has an attitude like you're talking about...
You're not going to get a judge like that. You're going to get a common pleas judge, much different beast.
Okay.
They still have attitudes, but they're different.
All right.
All right?
Thanks so much.
All right, bye. Oh, he's mad, isn't he? Bill, we've been waiting patiently. When can I bury Grandma in the backyard and how?
Hello,
Bill.
Carl.
Yeah.
You can do it any time. It's a zoning issue. As long as the zoning laws don't object to it, you're able to do it.
Yeah, well, there we go.
Okay. The funeral director could be listed as a family. On the death certificate, you have to have somebody sign as a funeral director.
Okay.
And this is done all the time with Quakers. So you just have family say that they're the funeral director, they sign, and they can bury in the front yard, backyard, as long as there's no objection by the neighbors. Because
Can you cremate him in the wood stove?
You can't you can't have a funeral pyre, but you can bury the ashes anywhere you want.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, I mean you know, first of all, it would take too long to cremate a body without a retort,
Right.
which is the oven for it. But once the body's cremated, that is the end as far as the law is concerned. So you can do whatever you want with the ashes, as long as it's not objectionable to your neighbor.
I took my grandmother's ashes to the beach down in Florida, and where she directed me to take her, and I see all these people swimming around, and I kind of snuck out in the water and threw them in there.
But that happens all the time. You watch people out in a boat, and they're doing something with ashes, and they're just releasing. It's totally acceptable.
Right.
And there's nothing you can do.
Well,
You had a comment, if I might
yeah,
add,
please.
about 3 times security deposit. Not only am I a funeral director, but I've been investing in real estate, residential real estate, for 35 years. And there's a little bit of legitimacy to 3 times the security deposit if you read the landlord-tenant law. And where that comes from is damages of twice and I think it's the rent or it's the security deposit, but it states the damages can be awarded for twice the rent. So if you have a security deposit, that can be taken, and
Right.
then you could get damages on top. So that's where that 3 times the rent comes from.
Gotcha.
I've never heard of anybody truly getting it, but it's up to interpretation because the law was vague.
Well, and this poor fella who was on, he sent me this thing, and I sent him back an email, and I sent him the Attorney General's rundown, And the Attorney General has a little fact sheet you can get off their website that says you can withhold itemized damages and any rent unpaid and send back the remainder within 30 days, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, listen, I mean, this is the way lawyers have interpreted it forever, which is that you can offset unpaid rent, and it makes sense. But if you read the literal law, I don't think there's anywhere in there that speaks to that exact issue.
Yeah. I have a really great story about how crazy the district justice can be.
Yeah, go ahead.
I filed suit against somebody who kicked my front door in and admitted it. We took him to court. I said, Your Honor, he broke the front door down, and it's $400. And he said, Is that all? And I said, That's it. And the judge said to the defendant, Do you have anything to say? And he said, Your Honor, I did it. I said, Okay, good. And the DJ said, Not guilty. I said, What's up with that? He just admitted it. He said, You didn't prove that he was guilty. So I just thought, it is whatever it is.
Yeah, well, I always tell people, that the court system, the former president judge of Cumberland County, he's retired now, used to say that when people took a jury trial, that he wished he could push a button and that the courtroom would turn into a casino and the roulette tables would pop up and put you on notice that, you never know what's going to happen. If you guys can't work out a compromise, it could go either way. And we see that even with the big criminal case, especially out of Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you very much, Bill. I really appreciate, by the way, when someone with particular knowledge like you, particularly as a funeral director, can call in and give us a little guidance because my mother used to say, she said, these lawyers come into my office. She's an assessor at the time and still does some assessing, but she was a professional assessor for years. And she's like, these lawyers will come in and they'll start quoting case law to me. And she's like, they just looked it up for the first time. She's like, I've had to work with that same case law for 20 years. I know it better than they do. And my joke is that people who work in a profession usually know the law in that profession better than a lawyer does.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Enjoy your show.
All right. Thank you. 540-0580. Tom, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, Carl, thank you. Carl, about 2 years ago, I bought a used car at a promotional sale at a mall.
Okay.
And I thought the sale itself, the deal on the car, I thought was fair. They even threw the car had 70,000 miles on. They even threw a 3-year, 4-year, 36,000-mile extended warranty. The issue I had when I bought the car, he says, we're going to take it down to the dealership. We're going to get it back to you.
Okay.
In 2-3 days, we're going to go through with a fine-tooth comb and and we'll send you a report and all that. Well, of course, I never got a report, but I went down and talked to this guy. He ran the whole show himself down there, and he did do $1,500 worth of work on the car, put some tires on, strut assemblies, oil change, and front end alignment and all that. But there was a few things that they didn't do, so I took it down again, and he thought it was a wheel bearing. It was a serious problem in the steering column, some mechanism. So I was trying to get through to the general manager at their main dealership. It was very difficult to even talk to anybody, but I finally got through to him, and I explained the situation. I said, your salesman lied to me about a few things, and he said, well, we'll try to take care of it for you. Then, of course, he passed the buck on to his service manager, and they're going to meet me halfway because he said they got to save money, and he's going to save me. I said, this isn't the problem. I said, you guys basically lied to me. When that car came back to me, there shouldn't have been any issues. I can't, I have trouble talking to you guys about anything. So I just wonder if I have any avenues, if there's a consumer advocacy group can help me, the Better Business Bureau, because I'm not going to get anywhere with these guys now. And I can't trust them anyway to do. I just can't trust them, period.
Well, if you buy a car as is, you're kind of stuck. If you buy a car with certain representations, then those are enforceable.
Yeah, there was representation. Like I said, they did, throw in a 36,000 mile. I only drive about 6,000 miles a year, 36,000 mile 4-year extended warranty. Well, that part, he said it would be covered, but it's it's the dealership's extended warranty. It's not a factory.
Right.
From the factory, there's a very big difference there. I learned this. And,
oh yeah. So, it may be worth sitting down with somebody, but there's always a tension in these things, because once you completely lose faith in them to fix it or repair it. If you don't win their warranty fight later on, then you're sort of on your own.
I checked their website out for reviews, and they only had 2 bad reviews, but that's their website. They had 200 bad reviews. They're not going to put them up. And I just wonder if there was any other website that you can go to,
There's like Rip Off Report, and there's other ones out there.
Yeah.
But long and short of it is... you're going to probably have to sit down with a lawyer if you want and talk about maybe writing him a letter saying either make this right or let's get an adjustment here.
Yeah, because my instincts are just telling me down the road here I'm going to have trouble with this car. My gut instincts.
You may have none either, but you're having a premonition right now, and if it comes true, you'll really feel like you knew what you were doing. I got to go to break, brother. Thank you.
All right, Carl. Thank you for your advice. Thank you very much.
Bye. 540-0580. Oh, I'm back. JC's whispering in my ear. Okay. Yep. Got it. Okay. Thanks, JC. Got it. Oh, I got to do some live reads here. Of course, I already told you about the exciting barbecue at Harrisburg Beer and Cigar on August 31st at 2 p.m. We'll talk more about it next hour. And don't forget, if you can't make it all the way to Harrisburg, just go to Annville to Big Mike's Beer Outlet. That's at 1455 East Main Street, Annville, PA. They got beer. What more do you need to know? If you need to liquidate an estate or business, I recommend you call RJ Gold Auctions. He can buy outright or sell your items at auction. I'm still eating this thing. I'm sorry. RJ Gold can be reached at 645-0061. He purchases outright items such as medals, pins, patches, tokens, awards, and badges, and most historical collectibles. He can pay you right away. RJ Gold, 645-0061. He's at 3712 North 6th Street, Harrisburg. Plan to attend RJ's awesome auction this coming Sunday, not tomorrow, but the one after, Sunday, August 25th, 1 p.m. at the American Legion in Harrisburg. Again, RJ's awesome auction, Sunday, August 25th at 1 p.m., American Legion in Harrisburg. PA license auctioneer number AU005798. Shane, you keep playing this crazy commercial, something about me being classy. Now, wait. Wait, what am I in? I'm the most interesting attorney in the world. All right. I want to hear it one more time because I just want to get it on the podcast here so we can talk about it.
The most interesting attorney in the world. He speaks Latin in 7 other languages. His suits are made of 200% cotton, and his ties are of the finest silks. He will often take a jury trial because he enjoys conversing with others. The bar exam? It was written about his life. He is the most interesting attorney in the world.
I don't always discuss law, but when I do, it's at 1 p.m. on WHP 580. Stay classy, my friend. Okay, I think I had an idea what you were up to when you had me record those last little taglines one afternoon. But I want to redo it as a YouTube video because I've watched those commercials closely, and he's always surrounded by beautiful women. And I think that we should get some girls in here, women, I mean, beautiful women, of course, and like maybe 3 or 4, and we'll just recut the whole thing on video. What do you think, JC? You in? You're in. Yes, you're in. All right. That ad cracks me up, actually. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but we managed to slide it in during these auditions on the 3 to 6 show on WHP. Somehow it managed to make it into one of their shows. I don't know how that happened. To pay a lot of money to somebody. It cost me a lot of bully. Steve, you're on WHP 580. What's going on? Hey, Steve.
Oh, hey, Carl. I had a question about Obamacare.
It's not a good idea. Don't get it. All right, what next? No, go ahead.
I agree with that. But with all of these waivers and exceptions that have been granted to all these other people, will we, the little people out here, have any recourse or any constitutional protections under the Equal Amendment? Equal Protection Plus?
John Roberts says it's legal. The Supreme Court says it's legal. So, despite the fact that everybody has an exemption, right? I mean, every major employer has an exemption. They're just giving them away. The only people that are going to pay are the middle class, as always.
Well, right, but what about the Equal Protection Clause?
Well, equal protection of who? I don't think wealth is a suspect class, is it? Being middle class is not a suspect class. It's just who we usually kick when the government. It's the area the government can kick. The poor. The poor have no political power, right?
Right.
The middle class thinks it has political power, and every once in a while it does. The poor, however, seem to have advocates. Middle class does not. And the rich people, let's just face it, the same 10 rich guys that told George Bush what to do are the same 10 rich guys that are telling Obama what to do.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And if it's not exactly the same 10, it's 10 out of the 20 that all are probably right now in Martha's Vineyard. And did you hear the judge, by the way? Just a complete side note. Did you hear the judge's comment about the Federal Reserve? They're fighting over these banking fees and what they charge on debit cards to merchants.
I did not hear this one.
And the Fed set the regulation, and they set the money really high, and it's basically pushing up the cost. So, again, like if you're a small business and mom and pop, all of a sudden, instead of losing, say, 6 cents when somebody buys a pack of gum on the credit card swipe fee, okay, it's now 26 cents. So one of the guys who owns 15 mini-marts or 25 mini-marts in Virginia basically said, under this new regulation, it's actually cheaper for him to give away the pack of gum than it is to let you run it on your credit card, okay?
Well, exactly.
So anyhow, they sued. He was one of the lead plaintiffs, and a federal judge basically ordered the Federal Reserve to reset these fees, and they weren't getting around to it. So their lawyer was in court this week, and the judge said, tell your guys to come back from Nantucket or wherever they are. This isn't rocket science. Get me a new set of proposed fees. But I like this thing. Tell your guys to come from Nantucket or wherever they are. Point being is, all your well-heeled Rothschild banker types who really run the world and run the presidency and run everything else. And I'm not a Zionist conspiracy trilateral commission guy. I'm just talking practical power, right? So anyhow, Obamacare has made it through, and maybe the Republicans in a populist movement will defund it, okay? Maybe. But I just don't see it. I don't see it happening. I think that
But neither do I. That's the unfortunate part.
Right. And I think the trick has been to get it through. Now, everybody wants to know why we know that John Roberts changed his vote. We know that he changed his vote.
Right.
I think the great scandal of modern America is going to be why he changed his vote.
Well, I agree with you, but I don't want to be a conspiratorial or theorist here either, but with all of the tracking of emails and phone calls and all that kind of fun stuff.
When I get back, I've been teasing this NSA thing. The coverage, the low information voters, as Rush would say, are starting to pick up maybe on this NSA thing a little bit now. But even still, it's only distilled down a little bit. I'm going to talk about the source document here. We're going to talk a little bit about why there is no meaningful protection whatsoever for our privacy. Because there's two problems. One is we assume that people are going to use the tool lawfully and constitutionally But once a database like this exists, just as the whole IRS scandal is proving, it's just too politically tempting not to, right?
Well, yeah, and same thing would apply with the gun registry in Pennsylvania that we allegedly do not have. But every time you purchase one,
right,
there's a record of it somewhere.
Or why the state police can ask you, by the way, do you have your concealed carry permit on you today, even though they technically don't supposed to maybe have a database of that? I mean,
yes, I do.
When we get back, we're going to talk about this Snowden thing. Tom and Chad, holdout buddies. 540-0580. Carl Rominger here answering your questions. We got a whole other hour. But, man, we're going to talk about how your Constitution is being ripped out of your hands.